A terrible scene happened when the young nurse was giving medicine to the patient. She actually mistook the medicine originally used for pain relief as an anti-inflammatory drug and directly injected 100 milligrams into her employer, the old man. If the antidote is not used in time, the old man's life will enter the final 10-minute countdown. Realizing that she had made a serious mistake, Jin Mei immediately found her backpack to look for the antidote, but the old man behind her did not panic at all. Instead, he took out a notebook and wrote down everything Jin Mei said. As a successful suspense writer, this method of killing may appear in his next book. However, what made Jin Mei despair was that the antidote originally placed in his backpack disappeared at this time. He was so anxious that he almost cried, but the old man behind him seemed to have given up hope of life long ago. Just like the plot of his suspense novels, he did not doubt Jin Mei at all. Instead, he told him that if someone deliberately replaced the injection and stole the antidote, then he would definitely die today. After searching for a long time, Jin Mei really did not find any antidote, but he still did not intend to give up and prepared to call for help. However, before the call was connected, the old man grabbed it. After hanging up the phone, he told Jin Mei that it was too late. The only thing he could do before he died was to get Jin Mei off the suspicion of murder. Jin Mei still wanted to struggle to find the old man's family, but was tripped by the old man's foot. He covered Jin Mei's mouth and told her that she was hopeless and there were only 6 minutes left. If Jin Mei was suspected and investigated by the police, her mother's identity as an illegal immigrant would be discovered, and the family would be forced to fall apart. With the old man's constant comfort and persuasion, Jin Mei finally followed the old man's advice. First, Jin Mei deliberately made a louder noise when she went downstairs, and said hello to her youngest son when she went out. It was exactly midnight at this time. At 12 o'clock in the night, he drove to the sculpture outside the gate, avoiding the cameras of the manor. After parking the car, he hurriedly followed the path and went back downstairs from the back door. There was a wooden ladder here that could lead to the 3rd floor. Unexpectedly, when he was halfway up, he accidentally broke a piece of the ladder and fell down. Fortunately, he successfully returned upstairs. The next thing to do was to put on the old man's pajamas and deliberately go down the stairs, because the youngest son would go outside to smoke for half an hour every day at this time. Through the reflection of the glass, he would think it was his father coming downstairs. Finally, we returned along the same route, which would create a perfect alibi. Unexpectedly, I saw the writer's old mother as soon as I got down. However, the old lady was over 100 years old, and she had Alzheimer's disease, so she thought it was her great-grandson. Jin Mei turned around and drove away, returning home at high speed. However, Jin Mei had a fatal flaw. Whenever she told a lie, she would vomit uncontrollably. But the old man told her that she didn't need to lie. When facing the police's questions, she just needed to selectively tell the truth. Being kind-hearted, she could never accept such an arrangement, and she wanted to fight for it before leaving. Unexpectedly, when she opened the door, she found that the old man had a dagger against her neck. Before Jin Mei could react, the old man ended his life with a knife, leaving Jin Mei no chance to regret. Sure enough, the next morning, the housekeeper found the old man dead on the sofa. After returning home, Jin Mei lived in fear every day because the police had no information for the time being. There was no evidence, and after a simple investigation, it was determined to be suicide. In the first week after the old man was buried, Jin Mei received a call from the manor, asking him to go back for routine questioning. Someone anonymously hired a private detective to reinvestigate the case, but the detective himself did not know who hired it. What surprised the detective was that he had just intervened in the case and found that the whole family was suspected of murdering the old man. Everyone is a drama queen, saying one thing on the surface and another in their hearts. The old man's eldest daughter is an elegant female business elite, and his son-in-law is a gigolo who eats soft rice and is forced to do something. Their son is fooling around outside every day, even on the night of his grandfather's birthday. She also had a quarrel with the old man and slammed the door and left. The day before the incident, the old man discovered that his eldest son-in-law had cheated on him. He called his son-in-law to teach him a lesson and asked him to leave the house, otherwise he would write a letter to tell his daughter about the cheating. The son-in-law thought that this was his family affair and the old man didn't need to meddle. The two had a big quarrel in the office. The youngest son has been in charge of the family's publishing company, and he is responsible for running all the publications of the old man's works. Recently, because he proposed to adapt the old man's novel into a movie, he was severely rejected by the old man and even directly dismissed him from his position as general manager. In addition, the old man also has an eldest son who died young, and the eldest daughter-in-law has never remarried and is still giving birth with her daughter. Living in this family, after all, the old man provides them with a considerable amount of living expenses every month. However, recently the old man found out that his eldest daughter-in-law had embezzled a lot of money in the name of paying for his daughter's tuition. The old man was so angry that he directly cut off his monthly living expenses. The writer's old mother was the least of his worries in the whole family, and she could not say a few words a day. However, when faced with the detective's questioning, the answers of several people were surprisingly consistent. On the night of the incident, they all came back to celebrate their father's 85th birthday. During the period, everyone laughed and talked, and there was no sign of anything abnormal about their father. After that, the old man went upstairs to rest with the caregiver Jin Mei. At 12 o'clock midnight, the youngest son saw Jin Mei driving downstairs and went home, and he was sent the next day. Now his father is dead on the sofa in the study. Jin Mei was the last person the old man saw before he died, so the detective found Jin Mei again. Since the youngest son could testify that Jin Mei had left home before his father died, no one suspected Jin Mei. The detective just wanted to get to know the family from Jin Mei. And the detective also knew that Jin Mei would vomit when she lied. What surprised Jin Mei was that the detective also knew about the eldest son-in-law's cheating. He deliberately asked Jin Mei tentatively whether it was true, because the old man always regarded Jin Mei as a good friend with whom he could talk about everything, so he would complain to Jin Mei about all the bad things in the family. But Jin Mei didn't want to betray the old man, so she pretended to be calm and denied the detective's question. As a result, he vomited violently the next second. Jin Mei dared not lie anymore, otherwise she would have to vomit all the spicy soup she had in the morning. She used the excuse of going to the toilet to quickly avoid the detective's questioning. Obviously, these trivial matters were not enough to constitute their motive for murdering the old man, but the detective still had no idea whether one of them hired the detective to investigate the matter. Not long after the old man and Jin Mei went upstairs that night, the eldest daughter-in-law downstairs heard a noise, so he pretended to be worried and went upstairs to knock on the old man's door. The old man opened the door of Jin Mei's room, but he said that he accidentally knocked over the chessboard, and then urged him to go back to bed. A few minutes later, the eldest daughter was awakened by the sound of the stairs again. It was the time when Jin Mei went out for the first time. The youngest son who was smoking at the door deliberately looked at his watch. The time was exactly 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, which also confirmed the forensic judgment that the old man's death time was between 12 o'clock at midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning. Then the detective found Jin Mei again, and this time he asked Jin Mei to tell in detail what happened after they went upstairs. It turned out that after going downstairs that night, the old man insisted on pulling Jin Mei to play a game of chess before taking a rest. Jin Mei had no choice but to postpone the time of leaving get off work, but because of the old man's chess. His skills were too poor, and he was killed by Jin Mei after just a few moves. Unexpectedly, the old man immediately cheated and overturned the chessboard. The 2 bottles of medicine Jin Mei took out also fell to the ground, but the old man was as happy as a child. Then the scene at the beginning of the video happened. Jin Mei accidentally mixed up the medicines and injected 100 milliliters of morphine into the old man. Just when the old man was arranging for Jin Mei to escape, the eldest daughter-in-law knocked on the door. According to the old man's instructions, Jin Mei did not lie, but only told the detective what really happened. He did not dare to mention the wrong medicine and how the old man arranged for him to leave. Until everything was told, Jin Mei did not have any urge to vomit, and everyone present was even more. I believe what he said. Since Jin Mei had been responsible for taking care of the old detective for many years, she wanted to invite him to be her guide to investigate the case in depth. The next morning, they came to the monitoring room of the manor to retrieve the video. What surprised Jin Mei was that she actually remembered the old man's instructions wrong that night. The old man asked him to drive to the front of the statue and park. But Jin Mei was too nervous at the time and parked the car directly behind the statue. This position could be seen in the monitoring. Fortunately, the video was only halfway through, and the machine began to emit thick smoke due to aging. The detective had no choice but to let Jin Mei take out the videotape first and prepare to take it back for research. Little did he know that Jin Mei had already prepared a magnet in her pocket. When returning to the manor, Jin Mei found another loophole. There were several obvious footprints of her own on the path behind the back door. In order to prevent being discovered by the detectives behind her, Jin Mei hurriedly passed through the small door first. When the detective noticed the abnormality, Jin Mei deliberately walked back and forth on the path again and successfully eliminated the evidence on the ground. Afterwards, they came to the backyard of the villa, and the detective found the broken wooden ladder at a glance. What made Jin Mei even more nervous was that the dog in the manor suddenly ran over, holding the piece of wood that fell from the ladder in its mouth. Fortunately, Jin Mei reacted in time. She took advantage of the detective's inattention and threw the wood about 300 meters away. Then several people came again, arrived at the study room where the crime happened. Strangely, the medical bag that Jin Mei often used was missing. It was usually placed on the desk at the door. At the same time, the old man's eldest grandson, Shu, finally showed up. It turned out that today was the day when the family lawyer read the old man's will. Usually, Shu rarely went home, but at this time, he remembered it very clearly. Except for his parents, the whole family was disgusted with this unfilial son. He was idle every day and did not work properly. He came back to inherit the property and ran away faster than anyone else. As soon as he sat down, his uncle began to scold him non-stop, scolding him for not even coming back to attend his grandfather's funeral. Seeing this, Shu's parents hurried out to make peace for their son, muttering, "That's what I ask in myself. What's it supposed to mean? He knows what it's supposed to mean. What? At this point, the old man's youngest son finally told the truth. It turned out that on his father's birthday, his son had been playing in the bathroom all night. During the game, he heard his grandfather and Ah Shu arguing, but he only heard 2 sentences. The grandfather yelled that he would kick Ah Shu out of the will. Before leaving, Ah Shu warned his grandfather in a rebellious manner, and then he slammed the door and left. Everyone thought that the old man had kicked Ah Shu out of his will before he died, so how could he have the face to come back and embarrass himself? However, there was finally one less competitor, and his uncle mocked him again, saying that he should sell his beloved car and shield as soon as possible, otherwise he would have to rely on his parents for help to buy a popsicle in the future. Unexpectedly, Ah Shu did not show any anger after hearing this, but smiled calmly, and then started to scold the whole family, even his own parents. The detective at the side saw them quarreling so fiercely that he ran out with Jin Mei in a hurry. It turns out that the life of the rich is also so down to earth. At this moment, the dog ran over again with the piece of wood in its mouth, which made Jin Mei very nervous. The detective picked up the wood and saw that the cracks on it were very fresh. Could it be that someone had climbed the wooden ladder recently? Soon he came to the corridor on the 3rd floor. There was still some dried soil on the carpet, and there were also traces of shoes on the edge of the window. It seemed that his judgment was correct. It was very likely. When someone came in here on the night of the crime, Jin Mei was completely panicked and didn't dare to say a word. At the same time, the lawyer downstairs had begun to read the will, and everyone sat in a row, looking forward to their own property. However, what no one expected was that the old man changed his will before he died, and all the relatives present would not get a penny of property. The only beneficiary was Jin Mei. "I live in their entirety to Martyr Cabrio, my entire ownership, of Blood Like One Publishing. I live in its entirety to Marty Cabra. The copyright of its catalog likewise. I live in its entirety to Marty Cabra." Everyone was furious when they heard this. They first threatened the lawyer, saying that he was just talking nonsense, and then they pointed the finger at Jin Mei. The eldest daughter changed her previous elegant demeanor and started to insult Jin Mei as a vixen, saying that she must have done something bad to her father. Only Ah Shu looked so proud that he got up and left the room with a big laugh. Jin Mei, who was standing at the door, was completely confused. Facing the attack of everyone, she hurriedly ran out of the yard, but unexpectedly, the car broke down at this time. Just when he was anxious and at a loss, Ah Shu drove over to save the beautiful girl, and the two came to a restaurant. Ah Shu first said that he had long been fed up with the hypocrisy of that family, and then said that he believed that Grandpa definitely did not commit suicide because he knew Grandpa's character, and he knew that Jin Mei would vomit when she lied. Now Jin Mei just happened to be full, so he hoped that Jin Mei could tell what happened that night, and handed Jin Mei a big bowl, ready to vomit at any time. Helplessly, Jin Mei could only tell everything that happened that night. To Jin Mei's surprise, Ah Shu not only promised Jin Mei that he would continue to conceal the truth, and be willing to help him clear the obstacles, so that he can smoothly get the huge inheritance, but he will only give him a small part of it. Seeing Ah Shu's sincerity, Jin Mei was so moved. After all, if the truth is revealed, her mother will be deported back to her country. For this reason, she can only temporarily follow Ah Shu's advice. The next day, Jin Mei suddenly received a letter, which turned out to be a report on the writer's blood, but the list was only half, and there was a sentence that made Jin Mei feel creepy. The girl found a horrible scene when she returned home. Someone sent her a threatening letter anonymously. There was only one sentence on it: "I know what you did." Instantly, an ominous premonition came to her mind. Could it be that someone discovered her secret? It looked like a test report issued by the forensic office, but it was only half a page, and the specific test results could not be seen. If the forensic test showed that the cause of the writer's death was drug overdose, then he would still be doomed. For this reason, Jin Mei hurriedly found Ah Shu again, wanting him to see what to do, but the test report did not mention the ransom amount and the address of the transaction. Only the icon of the forensic office was left. However, what neither of them expected was that when they rushed over, they found out that it was discovered that the office was already on fire. All the test samples inside were burned to ashes, and even the camera at the door had been destroyed. Ah Shu believed that the blackmailer must have sufficient evidence, so he deliberately destroyed the forensic office. He asked Jin Mei to see if she had received any text messages or emails. Sure enough, Jin Mei found an unread message. The mysterious man asked Jin Mei to meet at a laundry warehouse at 10 a.m., and there were only 20 minutes left. Just as the two were about to go, the detective in the distance spotted their car, and Jin Mei stepped on the accelerator in fear and rushed out. Soon, the police car caught up, even though Jin Mei had taken many detours. But in the end, they were blocked by the police car in a dead end, and the two could only raise their hands and surrender. Unexpectedly, the police did not come to arrest Jin Mei at all, but took Ah Shu away directly. At this time, the detective said why he wanted to arrest Ah Shu, because he had talked to the writer's old mother yesterday. On the night of the incident, the old lady saw Ah Shu jump down from the ladder. The old lady usually didn't speak, but she talked to the detective. Maybe she also knew that her son's death was strange. On the way back, Jin Mei kept watching the time. When passing by the laundry, she pretended to go down to get something, and then hurried to the dilapidated warehouse. As soon as she entered, she saw the mysterious man sitting on the chair. The missing medical kit was on the ground. When Jin Mei approached, she found that the mysterious man was the butler of the manor, who seemed to have fainted. The butler was holding an envelope, but it was empty. Just when Jin Mei was puzzled, the butler suddenly woke up. From the medicine bottle on the ground, it could be concluded that the butler must have been injected with poison. After he finished speaking, the housekeeper began to twitch. But why did the housekeeper say that Jin Mei was the murderer? Jin Mei was puzzled, but she did not run away. She instinctively dialed the number for help. In the hospital, Jin Mei finally couldn't bear the pressure anymore. She told the detective everything she knew. Because of her momentary negligence, which led to the writer's death, she would rather take all the responsibility. But before being arrested, she wanted to go back and clarify things with the old man's family. The detective also agreed to Jin Mei's balloon without hesitation. As soon as Jin Mei returned to the manor, everyone gathered around, thinking that Jin Mei had figured it out and wanted to return the inheritance that originally belonged to them. But the detective asked them all to go to the living room and wait, and then he would announce a big news. At this time, Jin Mei suddenly thought of where the housekeeper might hide the test report, because the housekeeper always hid cigarettes in the drawer of the fireplace before, and sure enough, he found the mysterious test report in it. Now there is sufficient evidence, and Jin Mei's crime of manslaughter is a foregone conclusion. Then he came to the living room, ready to tell everyone the truth. But before he could open his mouth, the detective came over angrily. He glared at the family for being too harsh. Except for the old man, no one regards Jin Mei as a friend. They are simply a group of vicious people who are no different from robbers in order to regain the inheritance. Then Jin Mei announced in her tone that he would never give up the inheritance. After that, the detective told everyone that the old man's death was suicide. The case ended here. Everyone was confused. Even Jin Mei didn't know what the detective wanted to do. The detective whispered a few words to the police officer behind him, and then came over to explain everything to Jin Mei. First of all, who hired me to investigate this case, and why did I choose? Before the will was announced, this person must have known the contents of the will in advance. Secondly, he must have known that Jin Mei had to give the old man injections every day. And knowing that Jin Mei had injected the wrong medicine that night, Jin Mei immediately thought of the housekeeper, because she blackmailed herself, and she must have seen the process of her injecting the wrong medicine that night, but was denied by the detective. Because the housekeeper blackmailed just for money, she certainly didn't want Jin Mei's crime to be exposed. Then the detective called out the police officer in the house, only to see the police officer control Ah Shu. Seeing this, Jin Mei hurriedly got up and explained that they must have caught the wrong person. She jumped off the ladder that night, and the old lady just recognized the wrong person and thought it was Ah Shu who came back. But at this time the detective didn't pretend anymore. She directly questioned Ah Shu why he hired herself to investigate the case. Ah Shu still acted innocent, but it was true. It seems that he has no chance to perform. Then he restored the whole story of the case in detail. That night, after Ah Shu learned that his grandfather had cancelled his inheritance rights, he had an angry quarrel with his grandfather. Unexpectedly, his grandfather told him that not only Ah Shu would not get any inheritance, but even other people in the family would not get a penny. All his assets, including the copyright of future novels, will be inherited by Jin Mei. After that, Ah Shu slammed the door in frustration, but he did not go far. He just parked the car outside the surveillance screen, and then returned to the villa along the path. While everyone was celebrating the old man's birthday downstairs, he climbed up to the third floor from the wooden ladder and replaced the medical kit. There were 2 bottles of medicine in the bag, and she also took the only antidote before leaving. Because according to local laws and regulations, as long as Jin Mei is related to the old man's death, the will automatically become invalid. At this time, Jin Mei seemed to understand something. If she took the wrong medicine due to negligence at the time, then she just gave the old man the correct medicine by accident. Therefore, the old man's death was not caused by her, but the detective told her that it was not an accidental phenomenon. It can only be said that Jin Mei's professional ability saved her, because the detective deliberately swapped the labels of the 2 medicine bottles, but Jin Mei was able to easily take the right medicine based on the viscosity of the medicine. So the writer did not die of poisoning. It was suicide. Just now, the detective suddenly stopped Jin Mei's apology because the blood test report hidden by the housekeeper clearly stated that the old man's blood test was completely normal, and there was no trace of drug overdose in the blood. And why did the old lady recognize the wrong person that night? The reason was that she had seen Ah Shu jump off the ladder before, so the old lady said it was a young son. Hearing this, Ah Shu still refused to plead guilty. He denounced the detective for talking nonsense without any evidence. At this time, the detective continued to restore the truth. Ah Shu returned in the second half of the night. He wanted to steal the drugs used to frame Jin Mei, but because the dog in the backyard kept barking, he had to temporarily give up this plan. Come back the next day to get it. However, what puzzled him was that the news reported the next day that Grandpa did not die from medical error, but cut his own throat with a knife. But what happened during this period, Ah Shu had no idea. He could only anonymously hire the most famous local detective to investigate. As long as he could link Jin Mei to Grandpa's death, then Jin Mei would not be able to inherit the estate. But by then the police had blocked the scene. He had to find a way to steal the 2 medicine bottles first. For this reason, he deliberately did not attend Grandpa's funeral, but took advantage of the fact that no one was at home, and sneaked upstairs to take Jin Mei's medicine box. But he never expected that the housekeeper did not go to the funeral at the time, and happened to see him sneaking upstairs. No, that medicine box because the butler has served in this family for many years, and has always had a deep relationship with the old man. Most importantly, he, like the old man, hates this unfilial grandson. The butler has a sister who works in a forensic studio, so he easily got the blood test report of the old man. Although the report indicated that the old man's blood was normal, he still believed that the old man's death should be related to Ah Shu, so he tore up the test results on the report. He wrote a blackmail letter and sent it to Ah Shu. Ah Shu naively thought that his grandfather really died of drug overdose after receiving it, and that as long as the toxicology report was made public, Jin Mei would be able to prove her guilt. Then he went to the will reading scene triumphantly, just to see the family tear each other apart, and he knew very well in his heart that the will would become invalid sooner or later. Unexpectedly, Jin Mei took the initiative to confess everything to him later, and he realized that his grandfather's death really had nothing to do with Jin Mei, but the report would prove that he was innocent. Once the will takes effect in the future, he would not get a penny of benefit. So at that time, he encouraged Jin Mei not to give up the inheritance and promised to help him clear all obstacles, and then he secretly set fire. He burned down the medical examiner's office in order to destroy the evidence that could prove Jin Mei's innocence. After doing all this, he sent an anonymous email to Jin Mei, asking her to meet him in the laundry warehouse the next day, and while Jin Mei was sleeping, he stuffed the half of the threatening report into her home. The next morning, she came to the warehouse early to meet the housekeeper. After snatching the report, she cruelly drugged the housekeeper and injected a large amount of poison. Before leaving, she deliberately set the report on fire and placed it next to the medicine box. Once the police found traces of the report being burned, they would have confirmed Jin Mei's crime of murdering the housekeeper. At this time, Jin Mei suddenly realized that the housekeeper had used up his last bit of strength to tell her. It was your good deed. Actually, he misheard you. You did this. She wasn't talking about me. She said, you did this because you may call you for help. And the correction is Ah Shu's Xiao name. Ah Shu originally planned to make another anonymous call to the police to report Jin Mei's crime of murdering the housekeeper in the warehouse, but he was taken back by the police in advance, which made his plan fail. Fortunately, when the housekeeper went out, he only took a copy, and he hid the original copy of the report in the drawer of the fireplace. What Ah Shu didn't expect was that he thought that after Jin Mei discovered that the housekeeper was poisoned, she would definitely get rid of the suspicion and flee the scene. Unexpectedly, Jin Mei's kindness saved him again. Not only did Jin Mei not run away, but she called the housekeeper for help in time. But after hearing all this, Ah Shu still looked calm. After all, these were all the detective's own guesses, and there was nothing wrong. Substantial evidence. At this time, Jin Mei received a call from the hospital, and the hospital said that the housekeeper was rescued. Hearing Jin Mei's retelling, Ah Shu suddenly stood up and came to Jin Mei. He told Jin Mei that he would not get a penny of his grandfather's inheritance because it did not belong to him in the first place. Now the housekeeper is not dead. He is at most charged with attempted murder. The small crime of arson is nothing. Just hire a good lawyer and he will be out in a few days. And then you will see just how much I can got your life, you business little bitch. What the shit? It turns out that Jin Mei lied just now. The hospital just told her that the housekeeper had died after failed rescue efforts. But Ah Shu just took the initiative to admit that he murdered the housekeeper. There is also a complete recording of the conversation at the scene. He can't clear himself even if he jumps into the Yellow River. But he still prefers to die and refuses to surrender. He plans to fight Jin Mei to the death. Fortunately, the dagger was just a toy. In this way, Ah Shu was arrested by the police for murder, and what awaits him will be severe punishment by law. The old father wanted to take the money and stop the police to save his son, but he didn't know that he was about to leave his family, because his wife had already found the letter left by his father, but she just needed to roast it with fire to see the content. The father told his eldest daughter to leave this scumbag early because he had done many shameful things behind her back. No wonder the eldest son-in-law tried to steal the letter exposing his scandal when the old man was not in the office, but found it was just a blank piece of paper. He didn't expect that there was such a unique encryption method for writing letters between father and daughter. At the end of the movie, the whole family left the manor with their luggage. They did not receive any mercy from Jin Mei, because Jin Mei knew that everything the old man did was intentional. His death was just like the plot of his novel. He finally left the world in such a suspenseful way, just to make his family free from the shackles of money and become better. He knew his family too well. The huge inheritance would only make them fight constantly, and eventually they would lose even the basic family affection. Standing on the balcony, Jin Mei held the writer's coffee cup and looked at the family downstairs with a firm look, as if she wanted to tell everyone that everything here no longer belonged to them, just as it was written on the cup, "My house, my rules. Then my coffee."